Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Release.
Come on, Brent. Line's good. Got real close. The hair high, right? Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham. Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Sean, it's really great when I hear that introduction and, you know, I'm supposed to get all amped up and I was just yawning. Like, sorry. It's, you know, we had a late game Monday night. Shockingly, we were the first game off the ice at 10-11.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was late. Stayed for a little celebration of our victory. And then, last night I was saying to you before, it was a pretty late night and getting up early, but we're here, Sean. We're dedicated to our craft. And, you know, we're here to talk about curling.
We are. You know, he did lose that hour too on Saturday night. You know what? Don't forget that.
I did forget that. You're right. We did. So not really fair. Plus I stayed up to watch the Brier final.
Yep.
You know, that was on till about 11 here on the Eastern time zone. And so it's just like this cycle of staying up pretty late. Yeah. I sound like Dad when we were kids. Oh, I can't stay up late enough.
Can't watch the games.
To watch the game. Like, whatever, just stay up. What's this big deal?
Yeah. Well, now you know. That's what the big deal is. But what we have that he did not have is the ability to just record it and very easily watch it the next day.
Yeah, Sean, we talked in the preview for the Brier about the time zones, and honestly, this worked out pretty well for me. I'll say, like, the afternoon game, I was able to watch most of the time, you know, the 4:30 to 7:30 game. And then, or I would just wait until after dinner and zoom through the 4:30 game. And then either stay up to watch the evening draw, or, you know, I'd have it available in the morning for me. And so I was able to watch, I think, almost all the draws. There's 18 in total round robin draws. So I think I probably watched games from 16 of them.
It's pretty good. Maybe
only missed a couple. And that 30-second advance button is
huge.
Great.
Huge.
Yeah. I used to have Rogers and they didn't have it, and it always bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have Bell and it's better. And even on their streaming app, like on the iPad or on the computer, I can do it, and you just hit the arrow key or the 30-second button. It's pretty slick. So I was able to get through a lot of games, Sean. I watched a ton.
Yeah.
And I guess we buried the lead. Brad Jacobs, as I predicted, once again, your champion.
That's true. And just to bury the lead a little bit more, for anyone who only cares about the Women's World Championship, I'll put a timestamp below for when we're going to do the preview for that. So if you're here for the Women's Worlds, we're going to do that, but we'll do the Brier first. And like I said, I'll put a timestamp below if you want to jump right to our Women's Worlds preview. But yes, Brad Jacobs did win the Brier. Don't call it a comeback. It's never left except for the time that he actually did leave. So first Brier for Brad Jacobs since 2013. Not the first since then for everybody else on the team. It's Gallant and Kennedy's fifth each, and Ben Hebert's sixth championship. So Scott, that lineup change last year clearly has paid off this year with a championship. Let's talk about the final. Actually, let's not talk about the final. Well, we will talk about the final. Let's talk about the semifinal, because yes, Brad Jacobs did win the game, but he won the game, or he won the Brier in part because Brad Gushue missed a shot that Brad Gushue's not going to miss a lot of shots like that. Mm-hmm. And it was a tap back for three. He's down one in the 10th end with the hammer. The rock is that he has to tap is, I think, fully buried, but the center guard is more than halfway high. And with the way the rocks move and the action they get, it's a shot that, like I said, he's going to make it 99 times out of 100. And that was the one he missed. And Brad Jacobs said, "Hey, we got the biggest break of the year on that." I think I agree with him. And then they parlayed it into a title. So I don't want to say that the title is at all compromised. They were full fare for it. They were the best team through the week, and just happened to lose on Friday afternoon. But Scott, how surprising, because I didn't see that live. I watched it later. I didn't see it in real time. How surprising in the moment was the Jacobs win during the semifinal?
Yeah, it was shocking because where he put it, sorry, I'm just going to bring it up on my screen here so I can see exactly where the rocks were. But like, you're right. Brad Gushue makes that shot 99 times out of 100. Yeah, it was, Jacobs wasn't able to get his rock in the exact right position. It was a little bit deep, left the tap, pretty straightforward, really. Like this is what Gushue does. And we talk about this a lot on the show, that the reason that these teams are always there is because the skips are so consistent. And Brad Gushue for the week was like incredible. And yeah, I thought he was going to make it. And I thought, oh boy, gee, I predicted Jacobs, but I like Team Gushue, so I was kind of happy that they were going to win. And then it switched and they didn't win. And I think I like audibly yelled from downstairs and got what's going on? So yeah, very, very surprising. How about you? Were you, I guess you didn't watch it live, so were you following?
Yeah. Well, I knew the outcome when I saw the shot. So I was occupied on Sunday afternoon, but I was keeping track of the lines, and I saw a steal in the 10th, and I thought, oh, okay, up one without the hammer, you tend to play it pretty aggressive and go for the steal / force if you can.
Yeah.
So, okay. That happens. And then I started seeing the shock reaction, and I thought, okay. And then I finally saw the shot, and yeah, I was pretty surprised. Vic was surprised too.
Yeah.
In the call. And it's one of the things too, that these teams, Scott, because the sweeping is so good, they don't overthrow it frequently. No. Maybe sometimes when they're trying to throw an 8-second hit, they throw a 7.5-second hit, and that doesn't make too much of a difference. But when they throw these back line, the hacks, just tap back 4 foot weight, they very rarely overthrow it because the sweeping's so good. So for him to miss by overthrowing is even more shocking than a miss in general.
Yeah. And they were, to their credit, they knew right away, sort of, I wouldn't say right out of his hand, but they knew that it was heavy,
right? And
got Jeff sweeping it right away and to make it curl. And you're right, the sweepers are so good. I was kind of thinking this throughout the week that they got to do something about this, because it doesn't matter as much if you hit the broom or not, right? Because the sweepers can affect the rock so much. But there's still that weight element. And yeah, if you miss the weight, no matter what, the sweepers are likely not going to be able to save it for you. So they knew that it was needing some curl. They got on it right away to do that. And even then couldn't do it because, as you said, it was heavy. So it's one of those things that, Gushue is going to be kicking himself for. The team was in a good spot to win. And so you can't ask much more of that. Sometimes it's about execution, and they don't miss often. But for Brad Jacobs, it's very advantageous that he did.
Yeah. So that was the semifinal. And then the final pitted Matt Dunstone against Brad Jacobs. Scoreless through the first 4 ends. Now, I like Matt Dunstone for a lot of reasons. I do. One of which, Scott, the opening draw against Kevin Cooey, he gave us a summer episode idea because he said, oh, this is the most exciting 1-0 game at the 5th that you've ever going to see. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. And so one of our summer episodes, Scott, is going to be blank end power rankings.
Nice.
Where I'm going to go through the Brier and look at 10 blank ends, and we're going to rank them based on what is the most exciting blank end that you can have. So in the final, I felt Dunstone was set up pretty well for a deuce in the first and the second. And then Jacobs on his last both times made a double and kind of picked his pocket because they weren't like straight, easy, like half rock doubles. Both of them were pretty thin, and Jacobs made them both. The third was a little like, okay, we got to the up and down point. Wasn't that exciting? And then finally, Dunstone is able to break through in the fifth with 2, and then he gets the force, and you're thinking, up
like
1
that.
with the hammer in a game where there's not a lot of points. And then the 7th happened, and Dunstone tries a very thin double, potentially for 3. On Blue Sky, the folks who do the simulation of the shots came to the conclusion that the shot was not there, that the shot stone of Jacobs was never going to roll out. It was what they concluded in the simulation of it. I agreed with Dunstone and Russ in the moment that it looked like it could go, but the way it reacted when he hit it, because I don't think he could have hit the first stone any thinner.
No.
So I don't know if it was actually there. And at some point you say like, oh, discretion is the better part of valor, and try to tap it, take 1 point. But if you make a 3, you win the game, probably up 5-1 after 7. It's a really tough spot.
It's really tough. As I was watching it and I was texting my friend Cam during the game, his commentary on the first half was, I need to calm down a bit from all the excitement. But like, I think you're right. I think he hit it exactly where he wanted to hit it. He needed to hit it thinner, and he wouldn't have got by the center guard if he had he barely got by the center guard. So he needed to throw the other turn. Anyway, you're right. I don't think it was there. The question then at that point is like, where did the decision making come from? Like, who saw it being there? I guess they all did.
I think they all did. They all seem to agree on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's obviously something wrong there. But to be honest, it's not the end of the world to give up that steal. You're still tied with hammer in the 8th end. Where the big mistake comes in for me is that he let them blank the 8th.
Yeah.
Up and down.
Yeah.
And Team Jacobs was tight on time. They had been tight on time in the semifinal. They were tight on time in the 3-4 game. So like they were just always up against the clock. And by running it up and down in that 8th end, just gave them some breathing room.
Yeah.
I think they had 8 minutes left for the last 2 ends, and they only used about 30 seconds of clock in that 8th end. Like, it would have been really tough for them to be able to make the decisions that they needed to make and have those discussions that we've seen them have all week about exact rock placement, what weight do you like, a little more broom, this kind of stuff. So I say bad job by Dunstone for not forcing something a little more, because it was basically up and down in that 8th end. You didn't even really try to put up one corner guard or a delayed corner or anything like that. And then in the 9th end, like, this is what they all say, is that you want to get your deuce in the even end so that you can force in the 9th. And he sort of put it
gave
into
that
a position
to them. Like
where,
it's like that blank being so up and down, being so easy for Jacobs is almost like giving them that deuce, right? If you're down 2 in the 8th end with the hammer and you score 2, that's the situation you're in, where you want to force get 2. And that's kind of the situation that Dunstone put himself is in. I understand potentially the thought of, it's a pretty open game. People are making all these doubles. Maybe we can get the blank in 9 as well. Maybe, but to my eye, they had outplayed them the whole game. Colton Mott was playing on his head. Was making everything. They just had their pocket picked a few times, but they were controlling, and Jacobs was chasing the whole game. Even in the 7th on that steal, it was because Jacobs is chasing and trying to get out of trouble. So keep that pressure on. It gives them the chance to take a breath. I wonder if do you lose your momentum a little bit, or with an up and down end, do you start thinking more about the bigger picture of what this means? And like, like we're 2 ends potentially from winning the Brier. Does your mind start to wander a little bit when you're not probably as locked in on every shot. And then the momentum just completely switches in the ninth end. And
yeah, for sure.
That's
And that's sort of all she wrote. And I mean, if they execute all of their shots in the ninth end, they're probably fine.
But they didn't.
And we saw in the semifinal and on in the 1-2 game on Saturday night. Yeah, Saturday night. The ice got a little fudgy, some tricky spots, especially if you hadn't played in one spot for a while. You could see a lot more curl in certain places, and that's what happened. Dunstone got caught in one of those sort of fresh or old paths, I'd say, and it overcurled on him. And like we said with Brad Gushue, that the sweepers, usually you'll underthrow it and have your sweepers hold it for you. In this case for Dunstone, it just was a little soft on the release and it started curling right away, and there's like nothing the sweepers could do. So when you're playing better than the other team, we talk about this with Rachel Homan all the time, right? Like, put your foot on the neck and like finish the job. And the longer you let teams hang around, the more important those mistakes become.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if I was betting live on the game, I wouldn't have bet that Matt Dunstone would miss that shot because he hadn't all week. He had an amazing week, his whole team. They were the best team in that game. But, it becomes more of a coin flip the longer you go staying super close.
Yeah.
So I think that usually playing open is not risky, right? We're going to like control things by playing open. But the longer you do that, the more risky it becomes as you run out of time in the game.
Especially when the other team is as good as they are, right?
Yeah.
You're like that's a team that I think they certainly outplayed them for the first 7 ends, and we're controlling the game for 7 ends. But it's really hard to outplay that team for 10 ends because they're really, really good. And you saw it in the 10th end, right? I'm sitting there watching it in the 10th, and I think we said this in the preview that Nichols and Kennedy are two players who are probably going to decide the event, and Kennedy kind of did, right? Yeah. He made his 2 in the 10th end, absolutely perfect. Lott didn't, but I don't know how much it would have mattered because of how good Mark Kennedy's 2 shots were in the 10th end. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, by the time it's Matt's turn, he's looking at 3 and nowhere to really put it. And on his last, he's got to try a freeze that even if he makes it perfectly, which he missed it by 6 inches or whatever.
Yeah.
But even if he makes it perfectly, given the situation, Jacobs would have been able to blow it up and score. Like again, I think Matt Dunstone, he's not 30 yet. So to have made 2 Brier finals at this point in this generation of players is a very impressive feat.
For sure.
I think he's going to win multiples.
For sure.
So this is part of the process. You got to kind of get your heart stomped on a couple times in sports is usually how it goes. Mm-hmm. That you have that, then you grow from it and you get better. And I think they're going to get better for sure. I really do like that team. I for as much as, Matt Dunstone played great, I think Colton Lott kind of emerged as a world-class third at this point. We knew he was a world-class mixed doubles player and a very good men's player, but I think he really took a step forward this mm-hmm. week. Mm-hmm. So, and you got the Harndens there who world-class sweepers for sure, gold medalists. Like they like, I really do like this team going into November at the trials. I think that's a pretty good bet on them. So, but it's just, in that moment, that decision in 8 is like, I don't know. Did you get spooked because you gave up the steal? I just don't know. And I didn't like it at the moment as I was watching it. And it just felt like it switched the momentum from Dunstone to, and not the steal itself, but
the blank.
The blanket.
Yeah, I totally agree. What you want to do throughout the game is make the shots easy for your skip, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, if you make them easy in throughout the whole game, but the score doesn't reflect it, right? Like Matt Dunstone's shots were relatively easy throughout the whole game.
Yeah.
But because they didn't have the pressure and like score to reflect how well they were playing, then when he didn't have an easy shot, it was sort of like, oh, I haven't played many hard shots this game, and it makes it that much harder to do. Right. So like ideally when I'm skipping, I'm like, ideally I'm guarding and we're stealing 3, or I'm, I've got an open draw for 2, that kind of thing. And so they made easy shots for Matt. The team played so well. It was 94%, 93%, I think, for them, 94 for Jacobs. Like both teams played really, really well. And they were making Jacobs chase. And then you're right. Like they just sort of took the foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where it switched. Yeah. I know I said we were going to get out of here quick tonight, but there's on the last shot, on Dunstone's last shot.
Yeah.
He played a freeze onto a rock top button.
Yes.
Did you like that call?
I didn't see anything else. Like I didn't think he could come the outturn side, because if he shot there, it leaves, I think, an easier shot for Jacobs. Like, so I don't know where he goes.
Yeah, so I think he could have done that. So my idea was to do an outturn draw, and there's one red in the 8-foot, one in the 12-foot, and sort of come behind those two, and then sort of line it up such that if you push the red into it, his thrown rock would jam on one. I wish I could show you my screen.
Right, but the one that was basically at like 7 o'clock.
Yeah, so that his yellow would jam and stay second shot.
Yeah,
there.
That maybe
it's super precise. But my thought was,
I thought that's what they were trying to do in part with the freeze. That if you get the right angle on the freeze, when he tries to blow it up, it's going to jam into that one. And so you're trying to make them by putting it in, like, either way, it's really hard. But if you put it in the precise spot on the freeze where there's no way that it's going anywhere other than that jam, but you're forcing him to draw the button.
Well, he's got to draw full 4, because you're not going to be full 4 by freezing on that rock where it is. So I don't know. I was just like, oh, that seems like an easy draw. Maybe because the outturn side had sat for a while, maybe that makes the draw that much harder. The sweepers aren't sure. So if the sweepers are telling you, we're not sure on the weight, especially when a shot's got to be that precise. Okay, I get it. Right. I just sort of didn't really hear them talk about that option, because I was texting with Cam and saying that's what I would do. But anyway, that's the final. I watched a lot more this week, like I said at the top, Sean, than you did.
So can I want to just get into just a couple things.
Yeah, let's
things that struck me from further afield than you. 1-2 game of the week, early contender for game of the year.
Yeah, it's an early contender. Yeah, for sure. It was really good. Dunstone finally getting that chance to beat Gushue, first time beating him at the Brier.
Yeah.
Team Gushue wasn't super, super sharp, I would say. Botcher had one of his weaker games for the week, but full fare for that one. It was fun to watch.
Yeah. Elsewhere, we didn't mention the lineup change on Team Gushue, having Botcher in the house. That's a change from what we've seen since he was on the team. Yep. Seemed to work out well. They talked on the broadcast about how Brad was enjoying that. I mean, from a sweeping perspective, Mark Nichols is probably a better sweeper than Brendan Botcher is, but it's not as strong of a sweeper as, say, EJ Harden. So we'll see what this means moving forward for that lineup. They should get a Brier spot next year based on finishing third where they were already. They should be fine for the Brier next year. Still got the players to go, but they should be. But if not, it gets interesting. So if you're in for chaos, then you root for them to go 0-4 at the players and have all the Canadian teams win all their games. But yeah, very unlikely for them to miss out on a pre-qualifying spot there.
Mm-hmm.
Elsewhere, Scott, I think we were correct in our prediction that Pool A was probably stronger at the top, but Pool B was more interesting. And that was certainly the case going into the final game, where you had like a pre-playoff game between Owen Purcell and Sam Muybrook. But generally speaking, over the course of the week, it seemed like Pool B had a little more intrigue from top to bottom, where you had the other teams, Quebec with Felix Asselin, 4-4. Thomas Scoffin gets 4 wins out of UConn. Good job by him.
Mm-hmm.
That's very exciting to see him take another step, keep getting better. At the Brier, Rylan Kleider goes 3-5. Tyler Smith, sadly, tragically for my playoff pick, only gets 1 victory there. They couldn't replicate his success last week, but it did seem, or from last year. So yeah, Pool B overall seemed a lot more interesting over the course of the week. But then Pool A, you have the situation in the last draw where John Epping is playing Shane Latimer and probably going to win. No matter, like, rare would be the game where Shane Latimer is going to win. And then he's got to look over at Brad Gushue playing Matt Dunstone and hope that Brad Gushue wins.
Yes.
And Brad Gushue does not win. And it was interesting in that if Brad Gushue wanted to, and this clearly did not happen, nobody clipped me. This clearly did not happen. But if Brad Gushue had been so inclined, because there isn't that much of a difference between finishing first and second, he could have thrown all 80 of his rocks into the boards if he really didn't want John Epping to make the playoffs.
Yeah, that didn't happen, but
no, it didn't.
And to be honest, like, we had this situation. So Pool A is only playing 1 game on the last day. It's the afternoon draw, and Carruthers isn't playing.
Right.
So they're at home, 6-2, cooled out, not knowing if they're advancing or not. John Epping's there, pretty easily beating Shane Latimer. And then I think that this Dunstone Gushue game, the last game of round robin, might have been even better than the 1-2. It was really fun to watch. But yeah, like, just one sort of thing going wrong kicks a team out. I don't know, Sean. I don't know. They say the last stone draw is really important. Northern Ontario, cumulative LSD, 165 centimeters. Manitoba, Carruthers, 404.9 centimeters.
Yep.
Yeah, the head-to-head, sure.
I think head-to-head should trump it.
I think bring back tiebreakers, man. Anyone can have one bad game, and like, it wasn't even like a bad game by Epping. They played pretty well that game. It was pretty even. Anyway, I felt bad.
Well, it's weird, right? Like last year at the Scotties, you had a 4-4 Caitlin Laws get in, and now this year at the Brier, you have a 6-2 John Epping not get in. So, the format is what the format is. There was an article late in the week about, do we have to change the format again? And nobody's happy. Like, by trying to serve everybody, nobody's happy. Can I just say I'm happy? All right, I'm good.
You're good?
I don't like this as much as the championship pool format. I do think that was better, even if it led to a couple games that didn't really matter on the Friday, because the teams that finish 4th don't really have a chance of making the playoffs. But I kind of like that idea. You have this cut down day, and then the teams that are going to make the playoffs have all at least played each other before. So yeah. I do like that. But what I like about this format is that it addresses the issue of all the top teams are going to be there. Okay. So
Mhm.
Curling Canada wants that. TSN wants that. The players clearly want that. So all the top teams are going to get in, right? Your 4 best teams in the country are going to get in, unless, you know, you have a major upset the year before and like the 50th ranked team wins the Brier, and then you only have the top 3. Okay, whatever. But your top 4 teams in the country are going to be there. Every province and territory is also then going to be represented. And that distinguishes it from the slams, right? I don't want this just to turn into a Canadian slam.
No.
Right. I again, and now that it's March, I've made this comparison before, but I think about it like March Madness, the NCAA basketball tournament. Right? All of these automatic entries get in from all these conferences that you hear about once a year when they play their game and the championship game, and the winner gets in. Some of them go in as the 16 seed and lose by 30 points. That's okay. That's part of what having everyone there is part of what makes it fun.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And
I
yes,
agree.
there are blowouts. And yes, Jacobs won a game 20-0 or 20-2 against the Northwest Territories. That is unfortunate. But I would be willing, if, you know, somebody from Nunavut wants me as their import, I'll go. I'll have a good time. I'll lose 8 times to have that opportunity. I think that's a cool thing. And Vic's essay at the end of the week, which had some very clear undertones to what he was saying, but it was really about sort of the Brier being a representation of the whole country. And for that to be true, I do think the whole country needs to be represented. That's what makes the Scotties and Brier cool and different and fun and true national championships. So I can't remember who wrote that article, but and it wasn't the journalist who wrote it, but there was a quote of like, by trying to serve everyone, nobody's happy. I'll just go on the record that I am happy.
Good, Sean. I'm glad you're happy. I'm happy-ish. I think you should have to play more games to win the Brier. I do think you should have to play everybody. You know, the fact that Northern Ontario didn't ever have to play Alberta, like Alberta never had to play the Northern Ontario team. That's too bad, because they were pretty good that week. Right. And that would have been a good game to see. So yeah, the championship pool to me is a little more fair. I was thinking, hey, why don't we take the CFL rules? If there's a 4th place team in one pool that has a better record than the 3rd place team in the other, then we take them, right? The crossover.
Right, but the CFL plays each other. Everybody gets to play each other a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I understand, you know, the constricting it to a week. It's not as much of a grind as it used to be, which for some is good, for some is not. So I don't know. I'm of two minds, right? That said, the teams that were in the top 4 were all of the CTRS teams.
Yeah.
Well, except for McEwen, who lost on.
Yeah, he had 2 chances on Friday and he lost both.
And I guess like we're doing like 30 minutes now on this thing. We said we would do quick on. But McEwen's shot where he sort of went through the hole and he gave up a steal of 2. Terrible luck, but also like you don't have to throw that shot.
Right.
And I'm not sure it was there, even if he hit it perfect. So, you know, a little bit of unfortunate news.
Yes, some unfortunate news.
Yeah.
So overall, Scott, I think the assessment of the Brier was a fun week. Give us a lot of talk about elsewhere. What else have we not talked about real quick?
Sorry, Sean, one more thing about the Brier.
Yeah.
In the summer, let's go and do our own scoring evaluation on this. The player percentages were crazy insane. Inflated.
Yeah, they're nuts.
Right? It was like somebody was like 86%, 12th in the field. And you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Brad Jacobs plus 11
Oof.
out of his 13 games that he ended up playing.
Wow.
Or 12 games. Yeah, pretty crazy. So,
you know, it'd be great if one of the ones where he didn't get a plus was the game they won 20-2.
yes.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, but yeah, I did notice that too, that the percentages did seem a little bit high, and these guys can make a ton of shots for sure. But sometimes you feel like the misses aren't fully reflected in those percentages. So yeah, just real quick elsewhere. Kevin Koe goes 4-4, misses the playoffs. That was a tough pool. As we talked about in advance, a really good team was going to miss. Koe's going to miss there. I think when you look, Scott, at trials coming up, that's like still got to book his spot, right? Like Kevin Koe at the pre-trials would be unexpected, but it's a possibility at this point.
Yeah, a distinct possibility.
Yeah. Jimmy the Kid, 3-5. Always fun for him to be there. Cam DeYoung, 2-6, but a lot of crowd support. Good debut for him. Hope they had a really good time. Tidiello gets a win out of Newfoundland and Labrador, his first time there. So good job by them. And so we already went through Pool B. So overall, congratulations to Brad Jacobs and good luck to them at the World Curling Championships coming up in a couple of weeks. So Scott, with that, let's turn our attention to the Women's World Curling Championship, which is kicking off on Saturday morning, 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Canada, Lithuania, let's go. That is the opening draw. I got to be honest, might not stay up for that one.
Sean, it's the match everyone is clamoring to see.
It's true. They are both world curling medalists from 2024, which we will get to when we get to Lithuania to add context to that. But that is the opening. It is going to be in South Korea. Second time that Korea has hosted a Women's World Curling Championship. First time since 2009. We have 13 teams in the field. And it is, of course, very important, not only for world championship purposes that we're going to crown a new world champion, but this is the last chance to earn national points for the 2026 Olympic Games that are going to take place in Italy, starting a little less than a year from now. Scott, going to go through the field. I have power ranked as I am wont to do, as we'll go through the 13 teams. But as we do for the Scotties and the Brier, I don't know if we do this for the World Championship. If not, let's start. How many teams can win this week?
Sean, 5 teams can win this event.
Okay, who
but
you got?
Really, 1 team can win this event.
All right, who you got as the 5?
Canada.
Yeah.
I've got Tirinzoni, Yoonjun Kim from Korea.
Mm-hmm.
No, Gim is there. Or
Gim, yeah.
Yeah, Gim Yoonji is there from Korea. Anna Hasselborg.
Yep.
And I said Tirinzoni, right?
You did.
So the 5th one is Constantini.
Okay. I think it might be a hair deeper than that, Scott, in that I think the Japanese women's program is so good and so deep that Yoshimura, it wouldn't shock me for her to have a great week and come through, especially given some of the results that she's had so far this year. Scotland, USA, dark horses that probably not, but like Tabitha Peterson can make some shots if she gets on an Amber Holland type heater. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say no to that. Kristen Skaslian and Norway did win the silver in 2023, so they've made it to a final within the last couple of years. Madeleine Dupont has shocked the world before. I'm not saying it's like a 10 deep possible winning field, but maybe it is. Like I think between the Scotties, Brier, and the Women's World Curling Championship, the Women's World Curling Championship is the most open in terms of you could give me a list of teams that are going to be on the podium, and there's more options than the other two.
I agree. There's more options for the podium. the simple fact remains that if Rachel Homan plays the way that they've been playing for the last 2 years, they're probably going to win.
Probably. So unsurprisingly, they are my top ranked team on the power rankings. It is
sure.
Team Canada and Rachel Homan. They are 56-4 on the season. They are, of course, the defending champions. They did lose a game last year in the round robin, went 11-1 en route to that world championship, went unscathed in their back-to-back belly-to-belly Scotties championship back a couple weeks ago. Scott, as you say, if they play the way they've been playing, they are going to be extraordinarily difficult to beat. The X factor in this is the ice. And what we have seen in international world championships is that the Canadian teams, especially early in the week, can struggle to pick up the ice. And when Rachel won her world championship in China, she had no such problems because she just destroyed the field that week. But if you remember the, whatever it was called when it was the 4 countries, the double round robin
World Cup,
the World Cup event, one of the ones in China there, she really did struggle with it. And, it can happen at the Olympics. She's struggled to pick up the ice as well. The buildings in these international events can be a little more hit and miss in terms of where they're putting them. And the ice making, not just the ice, not the people who are doing the ice making, but the facilities themselves. So that can be an X factor for all of these teams, but I think Rachel Homan in particular. But Scott, like you say, if they're, if they haven't missed a beat from the Scotties, I would not be excited to be one of the other teams and see them on my schedule.
No, for sure. Like they're the best. They've lost 4 games this year, as you mentioned. I was looking at the doubletakeout.com, the Ken Palm rankings.
Yeah.
They're obviously first. They're 19-3 against teams ranked 1 to 10 on those rankings. Their one loss outside of it was Stefania Constantini. So, yeah. And then the next closest team that has gone 17-8 against teams in the top 10, and that's Yunjun Kim, who's not even here.
Who's not there? Yeah.
I mean, everybody else has lost double digits this year to teams in the top 10. I mean, what else can you say, right? They're a juggernaut, and I'd expect them to at least make the final. Obviously, they could stub their toe in the semi, end up in that bronze medal game, but they're really friggin' good. Yeah,
it would be a shocker if they're not top 2 get to right to the semifinal. And then things happen, who knows, but you'd expect them to be one of the top 2 teams. So next up on my power rankings, Scott, maybe a bit of a surprise to me, that I wrote Sweden next with Anna Hasselberg. 7-5 last year, lost to Korea in the playoffs. This year, they are 54-17 on the season. They swept Isabella Rana in the Euro qualifier in a best of 7. They continue, Scott, their streak of not winning the Swedish national championship. Didn't enter it, but a lot of actual, as we go through this, I was surprised at how many teams in this field did not win their national championship. Pretty shocking number of teams, to be honest. And Team Hasselberg is one of them. Scott, they this year have lost the European final to Silvana Tiranzoni. They lost the national final to Rachel Homan. They lost the Karazawa final to Yoshimura, and they lost the Sundbyberg final to Madalena Dupont. All those teams are in this field. Right. They've lost the final to each of them. They did win the Masters going against Rachel Homan. Last year, Scott, they were 0-3 off the top of this event. In draw 1, they played Rachel Homan and were up 6-4 and force steal to lose the game in the 10th, and then they lost the next two. They were 0-3 with a point differential of -4 in those first three games. Went 7-2 the rest of the way, really picked it up to get into the playoffs. But Scott, they're a really good team, and I think the schedule breaks a little better for them this year to get a little momentum, get into it. You're not sort of thrown into the fire they were last year. But the question, of course, as always, is can Anna Hasselberg get that elusive world championship?
Yeah, I think this is a good chance for her, Sean. Like you said, the team, I'd say, is on a bit of a downturn from where they've been, which is still better than most of the teams in this field. But yeah, like a little vulnerable. But you said they've got a chance to start strong at this event. And if they're able to do so, they could gain that momentum and keep going. So, yeah, I don't have much more to say other than they're really good. Hammer efficiency. I'll be the hammer efficiency guy.
Okay.
Today, hammer efficiency 41%, 0.41. For Homan, I was just looking at it. It's like 60 or something. 51%.
That's nuts.
I think they're probably the only one over 50, but we'll see.
All right, next up, it is Switzerland. It's surprising to me that I have a team that has been in the final the last 5 years, third on my power rankings here. They are 59-20 on the season. They went 10-2 at this event last year, en route to a silver medal. They were the 4-time defending gold medalists coming into this. So as I said, they have been in the final for the past 5 years. They swept Team Schwaller in the European qualifiers, but they lost to the semifinal of the Swiss National Championship to Team Hurleman after losing the 1-2 game to Team Schwaller. So a second team here that has not won their national championship. They did win the Euros, however, but lost the Canadian Open final to Rachel Homan, lost the Masters quarterfinal to Rachel Homan. There's a theme in a lot of the things I've pulled out here, Scott, of what teams have done this year. But this team, Scott, we've seen it over the last 5 years. They're very, very good. They geared up for the World Championship. This was their first Euro, despite 5 straight finals at the Worlds. First time winning the Euros this season. So you can tell that they build their season around peaking in the middle of March. Question is, can they do it again this year?
I think they can. Yeah. It's funny. I think, was it last year? No, it was 2 years ago when they went undefeated at the World Championships. And they were like 2 or 3 games clear of everybody else in the round robin. We were just like, why play the final? Just give it to them. That team is still in there. You know, it's just hard to maintain the level that's that high for so long.
Yeah.
Right. Which is sort of the level we're seeing from Rachel Homan now for the last 2 years, is sort of where Tirinzoni had been for the last 4 years before that. So, you know, you just got to keep it going, which is hard. Right.
Yeah.
So they're definitely a team that's in the playoffs. I don't see them missing the playoffs here. And yeah, they could be, I think them and Hasselberg are the two most likely to knock off Rachel Homan. No, take it back. Korea. It's always Korea.
Yeah, Korea. Yeah. And that's who I have next, Scott, is the Korean side. Yeah. It is Kim Eun-ji alongside Kim Min-ji, Kim Soo-ji, and Seo Yi-yoon. They went 10-2 last year as the Korean championship. Very difficult to go back-to-back as the Korean champions. 10-2 last year, en route to a bronze medal. They went 55-24 on the season, a very impressive 58% force efficiency. They did win the silver medal at the Pan Continental Championship, losing the final to one Rachel Homan. They did go undefeated at the recent Asian Winter Games, however, to win the gold medal at that event. Scott, last year here, they obviously played really well to get the bronze medal, but 8th ranked in the lead position, 6th ranked in the second position. The back end was 5th each, but you want to get those setups a little bit better. And if you can have your front end improve their rankings a little bit compared to the rest of the field, I think that'll make the shots a little bit easier for Gim and Kim, that their ranking will go a little higher too. So again, not not much to sneeze at going 10-2 by any means, but there is some room for improvement when you look at shooting percentage compared to the rest of the field and setting things up a little better for the back end.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? If you get the rocks in the right places at the beginning, it makes it a little bit easier on the back end. And when they're that talented, it'll bring the percentages up. Sean, this team also hometown, putting in Weijingbu. I looked up the pronunciation. So like, home ice advantage. Maybe that plays a part of it. We saw that when the Olympics were in Korea, a real, loud, raucous crowd supporting Team Kim there. So maybe we get the same thing for the hometown team.
Yeah, and that'll be fun. Like the Korean crowd was so much fun at those Olympics, because not often do you get curling crowds that you can like feel the excitement in it. Like Saskatchewan, yes. St. John's, yes. Some finals, I would say the final in Kelowna, yes. But at those Olympics, it was like every draw. So if we can get some of that excitement, that'll be a lot of fun. So next up, Scott, I do have the Japanese side. Sayaka Yoshimura making her third appearance at a world championship. Last time was 2021 in the bubble in Calgary, going 5-8 alongside Keiho Onodera, Yuna Kotani, and Anna Shimiya. There is a change from the 2021 team. Chimeo was the second. Now at the lead, Kotani is new to the team from 2021. 55 and 26 on the season, 61% force efficiency. Played a lot of games, did come to North America, lost the final of the Tier 2 Slam to Christina Black, lost the quarterfinal at the National to Rachel Holman. They did win the Karazawa event. They beat Tirinzoni in the semifinal, Hasselberg in the final of that, and they lost the final of an event last week in Gangneung in Korea, a warm-up. A lot of teams from this field were there. They lost the final in that event. So they've been in Korea now for a while. I think that was smart for a lot of these teams to go play in that event, but like with Korea, I don't think the Japanese women's side is as deep as Korea, but it is still very good. So to come out of Japan, you got to be a very good team. And I think this team can come and surprise some folks, Scott.
Yeah, definitely. That was a good play by a lot of these teams to go there, get acclimated, play in that event. Sean, I think the lead, her name is Anna Omiya. I think you said Chimiya.
I did, yes.
It's okay. You have bad handwriting.
I do.
So,
thank you.
You're welcome. This team, a really good team, quite strong. Japan is a great curling nation at this point. I think we can all say that.
Yep.
It'll just come down to their ability to, well, I'll say win games. That sounds dumb, but their sort of ability to execute when things are on the line. They've got all the skills. They're definitely able to win. This was a team. I said those 5 teams. This was the last one that I probably could have put in there, and I think I should have. So apologies. I will say their hammer efficiency not so strong, 39%, but they're stealing at an efficiency rate of 28%. So that's pretty good, and that's sort of what's making up the difference. Sean, I missed the hammer efficiency for the others. Off the top of my head, Tirinzoni 46.
Yeah.
Then we talked about Gim.
Yeah.
44.
Okay.
And now this team, 39.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on, Scott, to the host team for the Olympic Games, the Italians, skipped by Stefania Constantini. They had a great season last year. Not so much this year, more of a struggle for them. They are 37-30 this year. Last year, they went 10-2 at the World Championship. They were tied with the Swiss and the Koreans and got the third place spot, going 1-1 against those two teams. They lost the semifinal to the Swiss, lost the bronze medal to the Koreans. This year, they are scoring 7.95 points per game, giving up 7.28 points per game. But in the big events, they have really struggled. They combined 1-7 in the national and the Masters. Scott, for this team, we saw that they had the ability to play with all these folks last year. This year has been a struggle in advance of the Olympics next year. So the question is, they don't have the pressure that a lot of the other teams have in terms of qualifying for the Olympics. They're there. They know they're there. They're going to be the Italian team unless something really nutso happens.
Yeah.
So is this really their chance now to build some momentum going into the off season and really get set for the run into next February for the Olympic Games?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the most important thing, is getting themselves into the mindset to prep for next fall's run up to the Olympics, because that's where they're going to need to be peaking, like starting to build towards peaking in February. You're right, this year not so great. They had a pretty good start to the year, but then it was sort of the back half of the European Championships and then those 2 slams after, not so great. So I don't know if somebody got hurt in there, if there's something that happened to really trigger that, but that's sort of where it seems to have let them down. And even when they're winning, they're playing closer games than they played last year. So, just that many more miles when you're not succeeding, it's kind of like, oh man, you can throw your head back and think, what the heck?
Yeah.
But they definitely are skilled enough. We've seen it. We've seen them play at a high level. It's just about putting it all back together. They're 20th on the KenPom rankings, which, for those that don't know, these rankings use a kind of like ELO score, like the way that ELO that chess uses. So when you beat somebody that's higher ranked than you, you gain points to move up, and vice versa. So that's sort of how they work. And for them to have dropped down to 20th, 4-15 against teams in that top 10. So that's where they've been really struggling this year. Hammer efficiency also not as strong as you'd like, down at 38%.
All right, Scott, let's move on to a team that gave us a win on one of our bold predictions for 2025. That is the Scottish side. It is Rebecca Morrison throwing the 4 stones alongside Jennifer Dodds, Sophie Sinclair, and Sophie Jackson. This team went 5-7 last year at the World Championship, but a change, as Sophie Jackson is going to be throwing lead still, but skipping. And Rebecca Morrison is going to still be throwing the 4 stones, but no longer calling the game. So we do have that lineup change. They did win the bronze medal at the European Championship, beating Stefania Constantini in that game, 37-19 on the season, but they did not win the Scottish National Championship. They lost to Faye Henderson in the final, and Scotland decided to send Rebecca Morrison and this team, causing absolutely no controversy, and the Facebook page was not blowing up by any means. But Scott, does the circumstance of the selection add more pressure to this team? And again, looking ahead to the Olympics, I mean, GB's going to get in. There's going to be a team GB at the Olympics, but I mean, this team was picked. Faye Henderson beat them. I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to the men's. I don't think Bruce Mowat necessarily has the same amount of pressure, but he has a team that's breathing down his neck that really wants to go and really wants to be Team Scotland, be Team GB, and has demonstrated they can beat them. Faye Henderson is the same thing, demonstrated that she can beat them. So do you feel maybe a little more pressure, not just because you want to win a world championship, get your country into the Olympics, all that, but also you got somebody at home who's looking at you like, well, we should be there?
I think, yeah, that's definitely going to be a factor. I don't think these players are trolling on the Facebook group to try and
Kevin Durant had a burner, man. Like, it's like, so who knows?
Yeah, maybe, but like you said, we'll talk on the men's side, but what Bruce Mowat has that this team doesn't have is like a world championship.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the resume is a little more built on the men's side, and that's where this team needs to continue to build on. Last year, 7-5 was a success for them. And so keep that momentum going. And yeah, because eventually, like, Scottish curling is going to have to eventually let them settle things on the ice, right? You would
You'd think so. You'd think so.
Because as long as they're getting results at the World Championships, I don't think they'll care too much. But if they're not, then yeah, I say, okay, whoever's going to win, like they might try to mix the teams up, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the team that wins between these two has to be the one that advances, whether that's to the Olympics or to the World Championship next year.
All right, Scott, let's come back to North America for the United States. Skipped by Tabitha Peterson with Corey Tees, Tara Peterson, and Taylor Anderson Heidi. It's the same team that went 6-6 last year at the World Championship, did not make the playoffs based on tie breaks and last don't draw, all that. 8th appearance for Tabitha Peterson at the World Championship, 4th time in a row for her. They're 35-25 on the season. They went 8-1 through the USA Curling Championship, 3-4 at the Pan Continental Curling Championship, but all 4 of those losses were to the 4 teams that are also in this field. So not a great sign for them. They are in Korea already, or well, all the teams by the time you hear this are in Korea, but they were in Korea earlier. They played in that Gang Young Championship event. They went 2-2 there, did not make it through to the playoffs. Scott, for Tabitha Peterson and this team, as I said earlier, they can make all the shots. Wouldn't shock me if they are on the podium in the final. It's just a question of, can they have that consistency over the course of the week? And it's past couple of years, it's been on the fringes for them. Like a couple shots here, there that cost a game and swing a game. Like they're really close. And is this year that they can take that next step forward?
Yeah, I think they could make it into the playoffs, but I would be really surprised if they made the final as opposed to one of those top 3 teams that we talked about. Those 3 are, I think, the class, and then the US is sort of trying to get there, and by getting into the playoffs, that should be good enough to help them with their Olympic qualifying. But that's about as far as I'd see it going. Of course, I could always be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again.
Yeah.
So hope not. Their hammer efficiency, Sean, 39%. And for Scotland, it was 42. So
need that to be higher.
Need that to be a little higher. Yeah.
All right, Scott, let's move on to Norway and Kristen Skaslian making her 9th appearance, throwing the 4 stones for this team. That is skipped by Marianne Rorvik alongside Millie Haslov Nordby and Aline Yarland. They went 4-8 last year, but they did win the silver medal back in 2023. On the season, they are 31-19, scoring 8.27 points per game. So scoring a lot of points here with a very good force efficiency up at 64%. They went 4-5 at the European Championship. Scott, staying on theme, they lost the Norwegian national final. They also played in the Gang Young event, losing the quarterfinal to Team Kim, which is not in this field, but did play in that event. So, Scott, the question with Norway is, can they replicate that magical run they had back 2 years ago?
Yeah, the farther away we get from it, the more it seems like it was a mirage, but they're really good at forcing the other team. They got a 64% force efficiency. 42% hammer efficiency is pretty good. You combine those two, it's makes for a successful team. But again, like they just haven't had the reps against the teams in the top of the field. So I'm scrolling down to where I see them here. 26th overall, 1-6 against teams in the top 10 this year. So that'll be what needs to change. Could they capture lightning in a bottle? Yes. Is it likely? No.
All right. Moving on. Scott, I've held off as long as I could, but we have gotten there. It is Denmark. It is Madalena Dupont making her 15th appearance at the World Championship alongside Mathilde Halsey, Denise DuPont and Me Larson. This team did go 6-6 last year to make the playoffs, coming out of that group at 6-6, lost to Italy in the quarterfinal. Madeleine DuPont did win the silver medal back in 2009, bronze medal back in 2007. Of course, your 2022 European champion, 33-21 on the season. They did win the Sundbyberg Open, beating Anna Hasselberg in the final of that event. Went 5-4 in the European Championship as well. So, Scott, this team can play with everybody, but you mentioned the further we get away from 2023 with the Norwegian side, it seems like a mirage. How do you feel about the 2022 European Championship for Madeleine DuPont the further we get away from it?
They can do no wrong, Sean. They're the best curling team in the world, and I would never bet against them. No, I mean, yeah, it seems less and less likely to have it happen again the further you get away. They're a perfectly good team. I think they can beat anybody on any given day, but the likelihood of them beating, especially those top three and really the top five, is lower and lower every time they get out there. So I don't know what to do, because if I pick them to be terrible, they end up winning. If I pick them to win, they miss the playoffs. So I'll pick them to finish 7th and see what happens.
I mean, I think 6-6, 7-5, 5-7, sort of that range is where they tend to be, and it's sort of where the matchups are for them. So, but always good to have them there. They're one of the teams that has the most fun at this. So,
yeah, they're pretty fun. They're pretty fun.
Yeah. All right, Scott, let's move on, and we'll go back to the Asian countries, and we will talk about China making its return to the Women's World Curling Championship, first time since 2021 in the bubble in Calgary. And it is almost the same team, just with a new skip. So Ryu Wang is going to be skipping this team. This is her 6th appearance at the World Championship, first since 2019. Yu Han is going to play third. She was the skip back in 2021. Ziki Dong and Jiai Jiang round out the team that went 6-7 back in the bubble in Calgary, 42-22 on the season. They are scoring a whopping 9.14 points per game. They won the bronze medal at the Pan Continental Championship. They lost the final of the recently concluded Asian Winter Games and lost the quarterfinal of the Gangneung event last week to Team Fujisawa. So, Scott, we talked about Team Han back in 2021 as kind of that next up-and-coming team. They're all very young, and now they've picked up or added Ryu Wang as the skip. So she has a lot more experience. So this is, I think, a nice addition to give Yu Han in particular somebody who can, who's been there a few times, bounce ideas off, and really learn playing that third position. You don't have to carry the weight of being the skip. I kind of like this. But again, we haven't seen China at a world championship in 4 years. It's been a minute. But the Chinese teams on the women's side have always found some success in B teams. So I think this is the biggest unknown in the field right now, the biggest question mark, just because we haven't seen them that much on the world stage.
Yeah, I'd agree. Is there, remind me, Sean, is there a chance that they can make it to the Olympic field, given that they haven't earned points?
There is.
So is it only through the last chance qualifier, or is it through points they're still able to?
If they win, they might have a chance. Okay. But it's likely they'll have to go through the last chance.
Okay. So yeah, this team, I'm excited to see them play again at the world stage. We saw them at the Pan Continental, like you mentioned, but this, like, looking at their stats, the way that they're playing is generating a lot of steals, which is good, but also puts them behind the 8 ball when it comes to giving up big ends. So that's going to be the difference for them. I want to watch their games because I want to see them mix it up. It should be pretty fun, and we'll see what comes at the end of the week. But this is a stepping stone event for them, not the end of their curling goals.
Absolutely. Totally agree. So let's move on, Scott, to Turkey and Dilsat Yildiz making her 4th appearance. She went 3-9 last year. It is the same lineup as 2024. On the season, they are 28-19. 8.7 points for 7 points against. So she is mixing it up as well. When you're playing 8 end games that have 16 points total in them, you're doing something right in my books. Lost the final of the Danish Open to Madalena Dupont, went 5-4 at the European Championships. Very good week for her. But as we talked about during the European preview, and I know Ryan was, I would say, critical of us for doing this, I'm going to do it again. When you look last year, Burfin Senghul was the 10th ranked lead. The second, Kalikusa, was the 13th ranked second, and Polat the 10th ranked third. Osner Polat. So Scott, those are low rankings. And then Dilsat Yildiz herself was the 7th ranked skip. So she needs more support from the rest of her team. And we've talked about this for years, that she can make all the shots, but when the other members of her team are averaged 11.3 or whatever it is ranking, and then she's 7th, you know where the struggles are. Like that's the issue, is that she needs more support and she needs to be put in better positions because she has all the shots.
Yeah, she has all the shots. And you're right. We said this last year and it's still the same. Right now, 41% hammer efficiency for this team. Sorry if I missed it for Team China. It was, I don't want to leave anybody out, Sean, 37. So we're seeing a lot in that like 42 to 37, 36 area. Yeah, like she can throw all the shots, and if she's put in a good position, then she should be able to capitalize and win. It's just about executing.
Yeah. All right, Scott, and rounding out the field for the 2024 Women's World Curling Championship, it is Team Lithuania. First time Lithuania is appearing at a Women's World Curling Championship. They are skipped by Virginia Polasketa. We'll go with that. I hope I'm close on the pronunciation. The rest of the team, I'm not going to try.
Go for it, Sean. Go for it.
Olga Voglazova, Migo Kiudit, and Ruta Blaziene. And I hope those are close.
Good try, Sean. Good try.
Those are close. They, Scott, are 5-34 on the season, went 1-8 at the Euros. But to quote Jerry Howarth, oh, what a one, because they beat Hungary, and that's how they qualified for the World Championship. They went 0-4 at that event in Gangneung last week. But Scott, I mentioned at the top that Virginia is a 2024 World Curling medalist. Scott, she went 4-1 in the round robin at the World Seniors last year, ran through the playoffs and lost the gold medal game. So she is the reigning or defending World Senior silver medalist. So she can play a little bit. Obviously, there's not a lot of slouches in that field, but I think it will be a uphill battle for them to find themselves on the right side of the ledger at any point this week.
For sure, it'll be tough. And rather than us, Sean, talk about curling in Lithuania, why don't we redirect you to the Rocks Across the Pond episode entitled Curling in Lithuania, where the president of the Lithuanian Curling Foundation came on to talk about curling in that country. So that episode dropped at the end of January 2025. So if you want to take a listen and learn more about Lithuanian curling, please be our guests, because it'll be fun to see this team at the world level.
Yeah. All right, Scott, those are the 13 teams in the field. You noted off the top that you were correct in your Brier prediction. I will note, not only did you pick the winner, you got all 4 playoff teams correct as well. I did not. because I thought John Epping had a little FU in him, which I think he did.
He did,
Just
yeah.
lost the wrong game. And I thought Tyler Smith would have a good week and take sort of that Owen Purcell role, but I was wrong. So, Scott, who are your podium finishers here at the 2024 Women's World Curling Championship?
Championship. Well, Sean, I've been talking about Rachel Homan and how good they are all day, so I've got to take them. Give me Tirinzoni and give me Team Gim from Korea as the 3, with Rachel as the champion.
All right, Scott, I'm going to differ in the sense that I'm obliged to pick Anna Hasselberg, obviously.
That's right. Bold
Every
prediction.
year, as we do. I'll say she beats Rachel Homan in that final because Rachel Homan has that look in her eye the past 2 years, and it's a scary look for everybody else in the field. I should note, it occurred to me, Scott, going into the Ottawa Curling Club, that I don't know how, I'm sure Dalal is happy that they're winning. And Dalal is the manager of the Ottawa Curling Club, but she has to get a new sign now. Every time they win,
that's right.
The Scotties of the world, she has to get a new sign. So, yeah.
Could she not just say, like,
she should stick another number on it?
4-time world champion or 4
yeah,
whatever.
They should. And and then she just has to replace that number instead of putting up the new year. Time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and by the way, the banner hasn't arrived for last year, or if the banner's arrived, it's not up. The previous World Championship banner is there. The one from last year is not up yet.
No, you're right. It's
just
not.
saying. So, and then for my third place team here, you're going with Korea. I really like this Korean team as well, but for the sake of being different, give me Japan. And I'll go with Sweden, Canada, and Japan. So there you have it. Our full preview of the 2024 2025 Women's World Curling Championship, kicking off on Saturday morning Eastern Time in Korea, kicking off Saturday afternoon in Korea itself. And that'll go through for 8 days, finishing on Sunday, March the 23rd. So a little over a week and a half from now. I want to acknowledge, Scott, before we wrap up here, the World Wheelchair Championship finished over the weekend, and the World Mixed Doubles Wheelchair Curling Championship is ongoing as we speak. We're not going to get into it this week. We thought we might, but I want to actually devote next week fully to the wheelchair game, and we'll get into what happened at the World Championship. It's not really shocking what happened at the World Championship. And we'll talk about what happened at the Mixed Doubles World Championship as well. But we want to acknowledge that those events did happen. I preferred when they were in the fall and they could stand out a little more, because right now I feel like they get lost in everything else that's happening across the curling landscape. But next week we'll do a deeper dive into the wheelchair game as things are set up going into the Paralympic Games next year. Things will be set in terms of the pre-qualifiers for that. The Paralympics kick off on Friday, March the 6th. So we are less than a year away from the Paralympic Championship, but we're not ignoring that. I'm just going to do a full deep dive and give it the time it deserves next week on the show, but want to acknowledge that did take place and that the mixed doubles is going on right now. So be on the lookout for that. So if you have not yet, do subscribe and you can get that episode and everything else we got going on. Do the likes, rates, comments, helps other people find the show, keeps us going. You can head on over to GameOfStonesPod.com. All of our past episodes are there under the episode tab. We got the merch under the merch tab, on the socials at Game of Stones Pod. Blue Sky mostly at this point in terms of interacting with folks. It's Game of Stones Podcast on Facebook. And if you want to let us know what you want to hear on the show, Game of Stones Podcast at gmail.com. Scott, it's getting warm. The time has changed. It's sunnier. The snow is starting to go away. Strangely, though, as you said off the top, all 5 games on Monday night went 8 ends and went to almost 11 o'clock, which is unheard of for March.
Really unheard of, and especially since we instituted this 2 teams go up, 2 teams go down, but like you could also go down like 2 levels.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of teams that, win D and come into B and then they get really destroyed, or like us, we would win C and then go to A and get kicked a bit and then go back down to C.
Yeah.
But no, like all of the games were pretty good games, pretty close.
Yep.
And yeah, just a long time out there on the ice. I'll admit, Sean, I did not envision myself throwing the last rock of the game. We were up 5-1 and sitting, I think 6. And our opponent made an amazing sort of double wick in off.
Yeah.
That spun his rock right onto the button, and you're like, oh, okay, that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, and Calden made too, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
When you hear like double wick in off, it sounds like a shot that was an accident, but no, it was called and made. Like,
yeah, and he didn't have anything else, so like, I was like, okay, well, sure. And that was the 6th end, and then 7th end, we got chasing a bit.
I certainly did. I missed both mine.
Yeah, and so we ended up. I made a shot on my last to give him a steal of 1, and then keep the hammer up 2.
Yeah,
we played it nice and clean and open, and had an open hit at the end. So I didn't envision throwing my last rock.
Yeah,
but it was nice that everybody still is engaged, and maybe coming off the Brier week, everybody's watched the curling, like we mentioned. What happens when club curlers start watching stuff at the Brier and they start trying different things. Yep. And like there maybe a lot of teams were mixing it up, or maybe they wouldn't before. So yeah, it was fun.
Indeed it was. And now there's 3 games left, I think, on Mondays, and I got 3 games left on Thursday. I only have 2 late games left to go to. So season is wrapping up for us, and with the season of champions. As I said earlier, got some summer ideas. I got a list here, so looking forward to that. But we have a lot of curling to get to before we get to our summer season. So please do join us next week as we talk about the World Wheelchair Championships and continue through this season of champions. So until we talk to you then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that insert.
Make the final.